Okay. Share screen from.
Yeah, and then I think everything is like limestone bottles everywhere.
Shit.
Yeah.
He's a big.
So even when this is a completely separate computer, it's not just another.
We get LV runoffs, so.
Because right now, if he's casting to it, he's essentially casting to a different HDMI port on the projector.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good point.
We keep open. We should. I think we have seen some things.
I think you've used this thing quite a bit. I think you've used this thing quite a bit.
I've had this, bought this shortly before I found out I was having my first child. And it's just very thankful I guess.
How do you suggest we?
So if you got to choose between one thing or the other, I mean, I would just go with like, you know, me talking.
Yeah.
And because like, obviously rather than like prioritizing what's on the screen.
Yeah.
We'll talk through a lot of
Well,
it.
we're gonna have to figure this out in the future because this is not gonna.
If you want, you can have that computer log into Zoom to join this meeting, and then it can share its screen, and this will be the camera.
Can you log into your Zoom account? Sorry.
Open Zoom. That would be fancy in front of you.
You might even.
Is there a meeting I can?
Um.
Existing meeting, or maybe in the invitation calendar.
If you go back to the Zoom, you might be able to find it. in the
Yeah,
Zoom
I have
meetings.
a.
We have all of these faculty. That don't. They.
Let's see, it's on the Facebook page.
Yeah, it is.
YouTube live stream.
I thought I updated it. Maybe I didn't.
Okay,
Oh no, go to discussion. Sorry,
discussion.
discussion right there.
Discussion.
Bam, right there.
Open.
Well, I mean, technically, I mean,
You want me to join with computer audio or?
yes.
And while we're here, we.
Okay, there we go. And then I'll hit like host disabled person screen sharing. Okay.
So you can share. You should be able to share your screen now.
Okay. There we go. Desktop share.
It was pretty cool.
Okay.
It was like 4 hours of Blackboard.
All right.
4 hours.
I'm just starting.
Okay. We getting there? I
I
gotta turn my audio on. Do I turn my audio on?
You should be picking it up from here.
That, yeah. Okay.
I think this is very jabbering.
All right.
Any of that.
Okay.
Test.
You're all gonna sit. With here?
Yeah, microphone is coming from the webcam.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, so we should.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah.
Make this full screen. Okay.
You get it?
We're there finally.
All right. Half an hour spare.
And actually, literally, we're at on time.
Or sorry, it says at 1:30. That's right. 1:30. There you go, man. You did it.
I should have been hour early. Oh my goodness.
Okay, so then the format is it all just presentation? Are you guys doing like normal meeting stuff or something like that? Or?
I'm sure that Ruth probably has
Yeah.
some stuff to mention, but it's primarily.
Okay.
I think we're good.
We
Sounds
break it,
coming
sign
from,
it
sounds
together?
coming with webcam, whoever is also, I mean, no one else is on it right now. Because I was gonna say you're
Juicy.
behind the scenes stuff,
Yeah.
but I think we're good.
Okay. And Tyler, he has an email from me that has my contact information. So
Okay.
if anything happens.
Blows up.
you can call, yeah.
All right. Rest of the work, guys.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Problem.
Hello, good to see you.
You did it.
We should lower the price of tickets.
Oh.
So would speak into this or?
Yeah, there's a mic there that's, we'll just pick up here or webcam or something, whatever. So we just talk.
Okay.
Here, actually, it's turned off.
And has it started or?
Yeah, we're now, but there's no. So the person's not. There we go.
Right, it's 1:30, so we'll just go ahead and get ourselves started here. My name is Ruth Richter, and I'm Secretary for Green Bellevue and have been participating since we began back in 2009. Started by the city of Bellevue originally, and we became a nonprofit in 2010. This program today is really inside of a larger initiative, our Zero Waste initiative that took big hold in 2014 when we created a slogan called "Lighten the Load to the Landfill." And the reason why we kind of just got really behind that once and for all was that our landfill was being moved 60 miles away to David City. And we were just going to be creating a larger footprint, dragging those trucks back and forth. So if we could, limit some of the trucks, that would be better. So we started that slogan, and what pursued was a transformation of how we recycle in Bellevue as residents. And so that just to see that fruition, we know that when you get behind something and you support the city in the effort, pull people together in the community that have access to making these things happen, and we all kind of put our heads together, we can make things happen, big things happen. So thanks for coming to the building today. This is our second days or month back having face-to-face meetings. We used to have face-to-face meetings up until 2020. And so we're still, building that. Using the Zoom for 3 years has been a great way to deliver education, but it's not a super way to generate community and talk about actions that we're going to take now that we're educated. So that's what we really want to do is start back face-to-face meetings and generating our community together to discuss those things. Next month, we have our Green Bellevue member meeting, and we'll be meeting here. It's going to be on the topic of Green Bellevue, talking about projects that we're doing, talking about our initiatives, and really talking about what's next in 2024. So we have our nominations for new board members at that time. So if you're, looking to take more actions with us, that's a super way to do it, is to just be on the board, helping to guide and steer, and, whatever your passion may be, but also just coming to these meetings, because we're also going to be discussing and making plans on what we're doing throughout the whole entire year. So thank you so much. Today we have Hillside. This program was born again inside the Zero Waste program, but we're sending a lot of recycling, probably 3 times as much as we used to, but there's still this whole stream of organics that are going to the landfill. And so composting has been in Bellevue for a while. I know there's some commercial accounts here. We have the compost club here. And we also have the students at the different schools, the high schools, that have been very passionate about bringing recycling into the schools. And this started in 2020 with Bellevue West. The FBLA students put together a pilot program and had support from Hillside and Green Bellevue and the city and the school board. And they really did a fantastic job with that program. In fact, they won first place in Nebraska, and they won third place in the country for their project called Project Revitalize. And we still have a student that's on our board, serving from University of Nebraska-Lincoln. So that got waylaid because of COVID. And so we've been a few years, but the students from both Bellevue West and Bellevue East have been serving on our board and talking and generating ideas, growing green teams within the schools, and Bellevue West and Bellevue East. And so the idea of this and the passion behind it has still been working all this time. And it's exciting because in January, Bellevue East is going to start recycling or composting in their lunchroom. And so we have Rachel Caraher, who's been behind the Green Initiative, leading that, sponsoring that, and mentoring that. And so they'll speak a little bit about that. So today's program really is about why compost and what's available here in the area. And then, this will generate us ideas on how we can really bring this in stronger into Bellevue. So we have Brent today. Brent, you can come on up and take over. Brent Compton, he's the Director of Partnerships. He's, just been working with commercial, working with the schools, and, really brings a lot of experience from the success they've had in Omaha into Bellevue now. So we're really excited to have you here and to teach us more about this.
All right. Thank you.
Cool. Hopefully the technology is working. We did a little scramble here before. But the nice thing about this is we're recording, so you can evergreen material. Does this go up on maybe your website or something? So use it as a recruiting tool for in the time that is needed. So, okay. My name is Brent. I'm with Hillside Solutions. We have our sister companies, Grant Sanitation, Soil Dynamics. I have to stand over here because of the microphone. Yeah. So the way that works is it's all the companies are all interrelated, same ownership, Andy Harpenow. But Granite Sanitation is a residential hauling company. Hillside Solutions, we work with businesses for hauling their waste materials. But we specialize in recycling and composting as well. So, and then Soil Dynamics is what takes the compostables that we collect and makes a product out of it and puts it back out into our community. So they all work together between hauling and producing and education and consulting. But I'm kind of more on, speaking on the Hillside side of things today. So we're going to talk about composting in the lunchroom, at schools, a cool accomplishment we just had, and Bellevue East coming up in the next semester, in the spring semester. And then also how you can start composting at home, and then a compost drop-off program we have now. Anyone here not on the Green Bellevue board? Awesome. Okay, great.
I'm on the school board though.
You're on the school board?
Yeah, so I thought I wanted to hear what was going on.
For Bellevue school systems?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Support for Bellevue Public Schools.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to hear what's going on and all that stuff.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, cool. So since we're doing the recording, I'll talk a lot about stuff, and then maybe should we do questions and answers at the end so we're not interrupting this? Does that sound good?
No, it's good.
Okay, cool. All right. So for our school composting program, we are well, I just want to play this video first. We just had this cool accomplishment at Central High School, and I'm going to attempt to play this video, but I'm not sure this is going to work out. Let's see what happens here.
Speaker at the bottom of the video.
Central High School. So after the first There's a little echo.
Composting program at one of Nebraska's largest high schools, 3,000 students at Central High School. So after the first 5 days, here.
Okay, we'll skip over that. So I'll explain, I'll play the video and explain what's going on here. So we just finished putting in a composting program at Central High School, which is like one of two like most populous schools in the state of Nebraska, 3,000 students. And it's been a success. So before we started composting there, they were producing 70, this is how many trash bags they produce now, about 15 on average per day. And between all the lunch periods, before they were doing 76 bags on average, 76 down to 15 bags of trash. And we are composting about 300 pounds of food waste per day over the course of a school year. That's going to lead up to about 13 cars worth of material. And then the trays, OPS gets compostable trays. And so that's a large part of the diversion strategy is if you stack the trays each day, it's about 16 feet over the course of a school year. That is taller than the tallest building in the world, the Burj Khalifa, and it's now being composted. And that's just one school. We're also doing that at South, OPS's South High School as well, which has similar student population. And then we're in like, let's see here, 25 different other schools doing a composting program. So like 5 West Side schools and a couple OPS's elementary schools like Dundee, Bancroft, Casteller, Creighton University, some Montessori's, Duchenne, Marion, Creighton Prep, Nelson Mandela, Metro, Culinary Institute, and then 2 Miller Publics. We got Reader and Abbott. And then we start at Bellevue East, like I said, this next semester. And so the composting program we do at these schools, we've been doing this since 2018. So there's like hesitation with certain schools, like, okay, how are we going to do this? And the cool thing is like, we've done this enough times now that it's just kind of a routine. We kind of figure out what works, what doesn't. It's not that bad. I mean, with like South and Central High School, they were, imagine high school students, which are sort of biologically wired to be against things, establishments, right? You would think that would be a tough demographic to work with. And imagine a scenario where in the lunchroom, they don't stand up to throw things away like elementaries do. They just sit there and adults come around with trash cans and they just throw everything all in there at once. And so now we're going from that to them standing up and going to unload stuff. You would think that probably wouldn't work well, but we've done the conversion successfully. So this is the presentation we give them to onboard them, to explain. And this is also a learning opportunity too, like what is composting, why do we do it, and how you're going to do it in the classroom. So I'll just go through that, pretend like you're a student in a school hearing this. So we're last count about 12,000 students per day participating in this program any given school day. And so we explain, what is composting? So composting is like, think about like, compare it to recycling. What's recycling? Well, humans make things and we reuse those things, like a water bottle. Human made that, we're going to reuse it. That makes sense. People are on board with that. Okay, I got that. That's logical. Well, composting is like nature makes things and we're going to help nature to remake those things. That's composting in a nutshell. Okay, just as important as recycling, just a different type of material. And this is a version. This is what composting looks like at the end product. And so, but where does your trash usually go now if you're before participating in our program? And so then we explain how landfills work so they can understand the importance of composting. So here's a picture of a landfill. Trash comes down for the day. And if you're like me, before I got into this job, I thought, well, my food waste goes there, no big deal. It just turns into dirt. Why does it make a big difference? Actually, that's how it works. So if you talk about how landfills work, they put a layer of filter on top at the end of the day. They're required by law to do that at every landfill, which makes sense because you don't want that stuff blowing around in neighboring communities. But That's what creates, it's what's called an anaerobic environment, which is a fancy way of saying there's a lack of oxygen getting to that stuff. Turns out that's super important, okay? So imagine a head of lettuce seems very biodegradable, very fragile, very friendly. You know, we love lettuce, right? Like it's innocent. What harm can it do? But in a landfill, it turns out a head of lettuce put inside a plastic bag covered by a layer of fill dirt can take 10 to 25 years, research shows, to break down, to decompose, okay? 10 to 25 years. So what's happening in that time? Well, there's bacteria, anaerobic bacteria that live in our landfills and thrive in those environments, and they eat away at that stuff, okay? So it's like if we were to go after this to China Buffet and hung out for 20 years in the same room and just ate nonstop, we would make gas. And this bacteria makes gas too, although it's methane gas. And research shows it can be up to 120 times more potent than CO2, you know, waste from cars, things like that, in the first 10 years, okay? So kind of a big deal, all right? And 34% of the methane that comes out of America is coming from our landfills, okay? So that's a significant size. So now all of a sudden our innocent, friendly head of lettuce in a landfill is being weaponized to create deadly methane and poison the air we breathe in our environment. To display another way, here's 20-year-old carrots excavated from the landfill, okay? And I know there's like some farmers markets, maybe you just came from some. If you saw that at a farmer's market, you'd be like, these look like wonderful artisanal carrots. Like, let me get some of these. But no, they're 20-year-old carrots taken from a landfill. So that gives you an idea of like what that stuff does in those environments. So the solution, of course, is to compost instead of landfill it, where it's instead of creating nasty methane and toxins, we're gonna turn it into soil. So how do we do that? So our process is, you know, schools, businesses, people put their compostables in our green containers. We pick them up on a weekly basis. We take them to our industrial composting facility. We have one in Ashland, Nebraska. We break it down with other materials like yard waste and manure from the zoo. And it can break down in 1 to 2 months, but we let it cure for up to a year. Then we screen it out to get any like trash that's in there that shouldn't be in there. We have different processes to break up the pockets of air that don't have air in there. Remember, air is really important to have in there. Add water because that helps kill weed seeds and create an environment that microbial life likes. And when you do that, you get up to 140, 160 degrees inside those piles. And you need that temperature in there over time because it kills all the bad stuff. You think of like E. coli from like the meat and stuff like that. It breaks down safely and cleans all that stuff up because the miracle of nature, bad bacteria and pathogens, it's in that heat index of like 140, 160, it kills it off. But good bacteria that we want sticking around has a higher heat index level and it sticks around. So then, yeah, we screen it after a year, get the contaminants out, and then you have this finished compost, okay, which is like a nutrient-dense multivitamin that you mix with other soil and dirt to grow things and feed the stuff that like the things that we grow without having to use chemicals, fertilizers and things like that. And so when we recycle, sometimes the recycling goes across the country, sometimes it goes to other countries. When you compost food waste, you can't do that with rotting food. So it stays local. That's the cool thing about composting is it all stays local. So we have farmers, gardeners, construction projects that are we're redistributing this stuff out. And then it's also building upon the circular food system because now, you know, local gardens are using that to feed the community. And some of these gardens are composting with us as well. So they send us their compostables. We turn it into finished compost. They grow the next year's crops with it and on it goes. That's the circular food system. So here's an example of a garden that's using our finished compost. So some of the other benefits of composting is when you use that nutrient dense multivitamin, you know, with your whatever you're growing, you don't need to use fertilizer now. And fertilizer is, we know through research, when we eat food that's been drenched in chemicals, it can aggravate rates of cancer. It also breaks up the think about soil being like a sticky thing. It's kind of like has a root structures get in there that bind it together, and you have lots of life that hold things together and make it alive. Well, when we use chemicals, we're basically breaking up that stickiness of the soil. So then when it rains, you get runoff. And so like imagine a farm field of growable soil. Over the years, it's just slowly fading away and washing off as they're using more chemicals, to the point where if you go low enough on our ground, you hit clay, right? So what are they going? What's industrial agriculture going to do here in the coming years? They need to make some changes. And when you strip away the chemicals and use compost instead, it reinforces all the root structures and the stickiness of the soil. And it doesn't go away. And you don't have to worry about weird chemicals in your food. And because you taking the nutrients from old food and putting it into the ground, those nutrients reabsorb into the tomatoes and the fruits and whatever we eat, and they taste better. That's what makes produce taste really good, is highly nutrient soil. And then the carbon bank problem. Any of you heard of this before? So it's like, imagine 10 years from now, we're all driving electric cars. Great. What about all the pollution that's in the air that's been pumped in there for decades now? Where does that go? Does that just go away? No, it's still up there. How do we get it away from out of there, like doing damage? We grow things. Turns out plants suck down CO2, which is what we've been putting into the air through pollution, and puts it back into the ground. And then the microbial life in the ground eats that, and they pump out, instead of methane, nutrients, which then go into our food and makes it taste good. And there's this great movie called Kiss the Ground. If you haven't seen it, it's on Netflix. You can watch it tonight. It kind of talks about how plants and growing like will solve the climate change problem. And it's a really positive sort of thing. But if you watch it, you're going to want to start a garden, so just be careful. So to recap, it's like you put your food waste in the compost can, we turn it into finished compost, goes out to gardens and farms in the community, and then it goes back and starts all over again. So that's essentially compost in a nutshell. So we've talked about what is composting, why we do it, and this is how you do it in the lunchroom. So you have anywhere from 3 to 4 steps. Some schools opt for starting from the far right, working over. Some schools want to pour milk, separate that out because it reduces the stuff you send to landfill, but that's optional. And some just go landfill, compost, stack trays. So one of the first things that's really helpful is like, okay, you can imagine like a line might form as people are like sorting through that stuff. Well, if the kids if it's emphasized to them to separate their compostables from their landfill items on the tray like this, then it goes a lot faster. So the first step is basically anything that's people made. So your milk carton, your straw, your plastic utensils, your food packaging, all that's just going to go in the landfill. Why don't we recycle it as well? Well, some schools try recycling, but a lot of times it's like food soaked. And so it's hard, that's hard to recycle. So we just, out of simplicity's sake, a lot of times we just landfill it all. And then so that's kind of what that looks like. And then what's left is on your plate is like your food and napkin. Okay. So you can just take your tray and you can just tip it into our compost cart, which is now in the lineup, and let that fall off in there. And then the third step is fourth step is stacking the trays. So OPS has paper trays. That's great because we'll also compost those at the end. Bellevue, if they have plastic ones, we'll stack that, even though those are still going to go to landfill. The power of stacking is compaction. And so when you compact trash, instead of like dropping it waywardly, randomly in a trash bag, you have more, you're not gonna have as much volume. So you're gonna have less trash bags overall. So there's still value in it, even though we're not composting them, just to compact. Because let's say a school has 5-day-a-week trash pickup, just by doing the tray stacking, they could cut off a day or two. So that's how that looks like. Yes, I'm going to keep blazing through this since we'll do questions and answers at the end. So we talked about school composting. So now next time I talk about composting at home and all that, do you want to say something about Bellevue East and what's going on there? Yeah, so just hear a perspective on like from Rachel on like what it looks like on the school side to do this and all that. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Rachel Caraher. I teach AP Bio, Anatomy, Phys, and Earth and Space at Bellevue East. This is my 11th year teaching, and one of the things I really wanted to bring into the school was sustainability. When I first started, the styrofoam trays kind of appalled me. I was really sad to see that. And so I wanted to find a way that I could do my part in my little corner of the world. And I knew that composting was kind of the way, but I wasn't really sure how that was going to look. And so working with Green Bellevue and some of the members like Ruth and Steve, and then reaching out with Hillside Solutions and Brent, we started looking at what we could do to make it happen here at Bellevue. And we know, like big picture would be awesome to have it at the district level across all schools. But we know that if we can show how it's done at one school, then hopefully we can take that and replicate it elsewhere. So it's been several years in the making now. COVID was kind of when we started getting going, and obviously that was not a great time to start making huge changes. And so we started just kind of having conversations about what this could look like. And our biggest concern was the funding piece. How could we fund this so that we could bring in composting into the school? And then would students be open to it? And so for the last 2 years, I worked in the cafeteria doing lunch duty for the second and third lunches on B days, because we have a B day schedule. And I would walk around. I was really saddened to see all of the food that was going into the trashes. And so knowing like an unopened milk carton, an uneaten apple, things like that were going in there, I started walking around pushing my trash can, but also carrying a bucket that if kids would go to throw something away, I'd be like, whoa, do you care if I take that milk off your carton? And so like I started collecting unopened, uneaten food to save, and was like, okay, how can we then continue to get even more food out of our trash? And so we met with administration and the custodial staff to discuss the logistics. The custodial staff seemed open to making it work, that it would be, we'd have to change our way of pushing the trash cans around, like Brent said, to a more stationary setup, but that would be possible. And as long as we had kind of some assistance from the school, we like teachers and students, we'd be able to do so. And yeah. So we met with the administration and custodial staff. We established it was something we wanted to do. The next kind of step was getting approval from the district level that this would be something that we'd be able to bring into the school, essentially setting up a contract with the outside entity. And so we had to essentially prove or demonstrate that we could have the funds to do so, because one of the things that we wanted to also ensure was that not only were we being sustainable in our practices, but that the programming could be sustainable and last, because we didn't want to start something to just have it end in a year. And so working with Brent and kind of what our school looks like, we've been able to kind of establish kind of a base level cost of our composting. And then through, I sponsor the club, the Green Initiative, which is kind of the main access point that we are doing this through, using students who are interested in having a green community, kind of helping lead the charge. And so through the Green Initiative, we've raised funds through several means. One is we have the luck of being able to work concessions for like football and basketball games, and we get like 35% of our of the earnings from that back to our club directly. And so like at the Bellevue East West game, we raised like $1,000 in one night, which was huge. We just worked the Gross Beatrice game that Bellevue East hosted last Friday, not this last one, but the one before that. We worked our first home game. And so that's one way that we have some funds coming in. And then we are also really lucky to have a garden in our school off of the cafeteria. And one of the things that we do as a group is we propagate, we clean and prune the garden, but B, we propagate plants from the garden. And then we ask for donations of old coffee mugs, because we know that everybody's got like a whole bunch of coffee mugs chilling in their house that, you get them as gifts and things like that. So we asked for donations, and all we had to do was get some soil and we were able to plant some cute little plants. And we sold some at the craft fair last spring. We sold some just at the school. We're signed up to be at the Lead Activity Center Craft Fair on October 14th. Bellevue East is having a craft fair. We're going to be there as well. And so through those two avenues, we really have been able to raise the funds to meet the need of it. And it is one thing that we're going to have to continue to do so. But working with Green Bellevue, we're looking at hoping to have more of a steady flow of funds to ensure that long-term this can be sustained. And so at the start of this year, we were asked not to start composting at the start of the year because there were concerns of budget cuts and things like that. And so instead, we were approved for January. And so to start the year, we had stations. That's been going relatively well. Students are getting in the habit of getting up and taking their trays and things like that. But we do also have recycling, and that's been a challenge because there's certain things that they don't know necessarily what to recycle. And we haven't had what we will luckily get with Hillside, which is that first full week that we roll it out. Hillside will be there to assist in the process of learning with the students to compost what goes where, and that kind of thing. And for us, really the only thing that is recyclable is if students purchase like beverages that are in plastic bottles, or the cold lunches that come in like the plastic clamshell things. And so, but just recycling those is taking a huge chunk out of our landfill as well. So hopefully we'll be rolling this out, in January and have a successful semester and educate the students and staff even more so on why we're composting and the value of that we can hopefully reach out. And kind of next big goals would be more schools in the district that have it, and then also moving towards compostable trays so that we can really make it full blown. Anything else?
It's great.
I have so many questions, but I.
Okay. Okay, sure,
Right?
sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she brought up a good point about kind of the onboarding process of how we do it. Some of the benefits is like fewer landfill pickups that we talked about, fewer plastic bags. So custodians can sometimes be hesitant about it, but some of them actually tell us that they have less work to do because now they're not going around with cans and having, in the case of Central, 76 bags of trash they got to continually unload, and so they actually have like some free time. And so we kind of direct some of them towards now standing by the stations and monitoring them instead, because you do need that element for accountability. It's kind of like the broken window theory. The broken window theory is like you break a window, you come back a week later, you see it's still broken, then like it basically is a cascading effect of vandalism. But if you come back and it's repaired, you see, oh, there's someone in control, there's this, and then it dissuades that. And that's the same thing happens at those bins. 80-90% of the kids do it right, but that 10% may do it wrong. And if they, if you allow that 10% to occur without being checked, then it can spill over into a larger percentage. And then if schools also they compost with us, and I'll talk about our compost club program hosts a drop-off site for residential members. Then they're eligible for our spring giveaway where people can donate compost to them if they have like a garden they're doing. So it's a way to get some free soil as well. So and this is all on our website, hillside.solutions/schools. Talks a little bit about what we're doing. So the first week launch. So once we get to that point, we'll be there the first 5 days, standing by those containers and helping students separate correctly, and then make any adjustments we see, like, oh, we need to try this or move these things over here. Just kind of figure that out. Like, how is it going to work well? And then we also weigh at the end of the school day, like how much trash was made, how much compost was made. And then we put that in a report that you can see, okay, well, in the case of Omaha Northwest High School, they had a 68% landfill diversion. So 68% is now being composted instead of going to the landfill. And if you project that over the course of a school year, you can kind of get some numbers of what kind of effect that will have, which is pretty fun. And yeah, we provide the posters. These are our newer ones. And we put them on these sticks above. We provide all that infrastructure. So this is one of the custodians at Northwest that used to go around with trash can, and now she hangs out next to this and just keeps an eye on students. We'll come back to that with some questions. If you want to learn how to compost at home, we developed an easy way to do it so that without having to spend money or purchase anything or just, and so it's a 7-step process. I'll just blaze through that real quick. But step 1 would be, if you want to do it at home, and this is in the case if you have a yard. If you don't have a yard, you're out of luck. But I do have a solution for you after I talk about this. You want to compost the big 3: vegetables, fruits, and yard waste. Okay, you can compost some things outside of this safely at home, but for beginners, just think of if you focus on this, you're going to get this is the majority of what you can compost at home, and you won't mess things up. So, no, do not do dairy, do not do meat, things like that, because it will introduce pathogens, and you don't want that. That's not a good idea. So, what do you want to do in your kitchen? You want to find a container you're not using or repurpose, and put your fruit scraps, vegetable scraps in there. So we had like a pull-out drawer with 2 slots, and we just made one of them for compostables. Okay. And then step 3 is find a place in your backyard where you'll have a compost pile. You don't need to buy a turner. I don't like those turners because it's constricted in how much space it has. For some people, it can be a cost thing, and you actually, I think it's better if it's just a pile on the ground. So just somewhere where there's light and you can hit it with a hose. Okay. So I'll show you kind of what mine looks like in a little bit here. And then this is probably where most people get it wrong, but once you understand the dynamic, you can't mess it up. Okay. And that is more or less for every 1/4 food waste you collect from your kitchen, you're putting that pile, you want 3/4 yard waste, primarily leaves. Grass is okay too, but leaves are really the ticket. You could also use wood chips, newspaper, and things like that. But the idea, if you're not trying to spend money, when you rake this fall, keep those bags. Don't put them out, and you can use that as like your fuel, or like me, I pull up to my neighbor's yard, open up the trunk in the middle of the night, throw in those bags of leaves, they come up the next morning and go, who took my leaves, So there's you can get creative. And so, but the idea is you do more or less this, and if you notice there's a smell or there's bugs, then that's just an indication. Just add more of those like carbons of like your yard waste kind of stuff, and that will neutralize it. Okay. So here's a sort of a visual of that: 25 to 75 nitrogen versus carbon. Nitrogen is like your food kitchen scraps. This is what mine looks like. I just grabbed some wood pallets my neighbor put out on the street to like give away, and I made this little slot. You can tell in the corners, I just put zip ties together because the angle for a nail is kind of weird. So really like DIY. This is not hard to do. It's nice to have the slits on the side because it allows oxygen, as we talked about earlier. That's really important. And I'll just like drop it on like, let's say the far left side, and then maybe take it, shovel, move it to the middle. And then by the time it gets to the far right, it's like more so done. So this step number 5 is you do need to mix it up, but you can be a lazy compost or an active one. So like, I know some people that are like, they do it once a week and they get cool piles that look like this, and they put off steam because they're mixing it up enough that microbial life comes in there and starts eating away and breaking it down. And it's producing, like, by doing all that work, it's producing heat, and that's where you get like steam coming off of it. Honestly, I mix my piles a couple times a year. That's it. I'm not in a hurry, so it's really, it just depends on you. Step 6, how do you know when it's done? It just smells like earth. And so you put it in a container, sample, put it inside for the day, come back. Does it smell like earth? It's done. If it smells a little foul, it needs to keep composting. It's that simple. And then, you get some finished product that looks something like this. Step 7, what do you do with it? Well, now you can ditch fertilizers, chemicals, and you use this instead, because this is nature's version of that. And it doesn't have to be for a garden. It could be, one year, me and my daughter went out with a big old bucket of it. And I said, you see this compost here? Throw it everywhere over the yard. Like we're gonna put some nutrients in our grass, and we had a big old mess that we made and end up throwing compost at each other was fun. So, or just houseplants, just sprinkle a little bit in your houseplants too. Anywhere there's anything growing, it needs this stuff. And so, that's what you do. So what about meat, dairy, bones? And then like a lot of the restaurants are getting really fancy and getting compostable serviceware. You get like a package or a cup that says this is compostable. Like what do you do with those things? You can't add it to your pile at home. Your recycling center doesn't want it in their stream because they're not set up to do anything with that. What happens? Well, that's where industrial composting comes in hand. And we have the area's only industrial composting site through Soil Dynamics. And we can take that stuff because it's designed to go to sites like ours for us to break down. So, so this is an example of compostable serveware you see out in the field now. There can be utensils that maybe have kind of a off-white color and they may have that BPI logo on it. It has to be something that's certified compostable, which is very important. Sometimes we work with people and, they see like, here's for example, I think there's compostable trash bags now. They're more expensive than plastic ones. And they'll say, oh, we don't want to buy them from you because that's really expensive. We found something on Amazon and it is a wild, wild west. If to go online and just buy something, because there's a lot of things that look like that's earth friendly, but then you see, there's only 80% plastic in this instead of 100%. And somehow that's better for the earth, but now we can't recycle it. We can't compost it because of the plastic infusion with the natural component. But yeah, essentially what we're doing here is a circular food system. So this is like a church that we're working with. They have their compost carts in the back. They're composting, church is composting, and it's also a compost drop-off site. Yes. Faith Westwood. Yeah. And then they get some of our compost back. They're putting it in their garden, and on the process goes. So that is composting at home. Now we're going to talk about Compost Club a little bit more. So, sure. Yeah, so she mentioned for the people for the recording purposes, be careful with leaves with seeds because they probably won't break down and they may cause some issues down the road. Weeds, yeah. So for Compost Club, this is our subscription base. You can all become Compost Club members. So essentially you subscribe. We have over 1,000 members now, 60 different drop-off sites, and you get access to a map of we have different Compost Club drop-off sites. So you collect your compostables from home. This includes industrial compostable stuff. So the compostable serveware you get from restaurants, your meat, dairy, bones, and you can bring them to one of our sites, drop it off. We'll take it. We'll do the composting for you. And then you also get credits each year to get some of that compost back, and then 20% off all the other like soil, mulch, compost stuff that we sell. So you pick a subscription that we have like monthly and annual memberships. And so like your normal monthly one is like $8.99. But if you're like a student, teacher, military, veteran, senior, it's $4.50 a month. Okay. And then you sort that at home. You can download this poster that lists like different things that we take. And a lot of people just use like painters buckets and then drop it off one of our sites. They're all accessible 24/7. You get some of that soil back. You can also donate it to a nonprofit that's composting with us, also hosting a Compost Club drop-off site. Yeah, this is what like a drop-off site typically looks like. A lot of them have locks on it, so that you get the code when you become a member. And there we go. So did I cover all the oh, and then so for Bellevue, we have some organizations we're working with now, Patricia's Catering, they're like a zero waste caterer in Bellevue. They have a compost club drop-off site. We have one, yep, and then we have one at the Banh Mi sandwich shop, which is delicious. You haven't been there before. And then Church of the Holy Spirit. So these are our 3 Bellevue drop-off sites we have now. We also do a little bit of recycling with Fontenelle, and they're working up to composting with us. And yeah, and then Banh Mi is doing some cool stuff with us too. So a lot of room to grow our presence in Bellevue. Was there anything else you wanted me to cover on this? Should we do question and answer stuff now? Okay, cool. So yeah, we'll take questions.
I have a plug real quick, Brent.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I did your zero waste workshop for businesses,
Yeah.
and I recommend that anybody who works anywhere, take it. Because even if you're not in a leadership role in your organization, there are little things every individual within the organization can do that will help move you towards zero waste. So I'm at Fontenelle, and my facility team of one other person has also taken it. And that's what started us towards a recycling program, getting the composting, and just reducing our waste overall. So I highly recommend taking that free workshop that Hillside puts on. You'll learn a lot just about general recycling too. I was recycling wrong, and I've been doing it forever, and I've been in Green Bellevue for 5 years. So yeah, it's absolutely worth the half day to go do that.
Yeah, we do
I was asking
Yeah.
her what's in this. I was just lids that are this big, I get filtered out in the recycling box. So they need to go on the container or they get away with that. And I have been putting all of that essentially in the landfill since I've done it on 3 years. So that was my biggest takeaway. I went back to work and I told everybody, as many people as I could not to do that. So, and at home, yeah, and at home too.
Cool. Yeah. So we're doing once or twice a year, we do a zero waste seminar. It's like a half day thing. It's during a work day. It's kind of designed for like businesses and organizations that we do work with or they're interested in working with us. And we kind of go through like how to start a program, how to maintain it. Yeah, thanks for coming to that one. We have also a helpful thing on our website that I was going to pull up here, but now computer's doing something weird. But like a 12-step process essentially, and like how organizations can implement our programs. And so we kind of go over that in depth. So yeah, what other questions you got?
I have a couple of like the school composting programs and stuff, so Rachel, this might be for you too. But, so what happened at Bellevue West? Do they still composting or did that fall apart?
So once COVID hit, they stopped, and
Okay.
it hasn't come back. And I think one of the to be frank on that, like one of the elements is like, it's not just about having students or teacher two on board. You also like these programs we found live and die with the principal.
Yeah.
And so we just haven't seen enough support on that admin side to get this going. Going off of what Rachel said about the fundraising thing, they've been super savvy with like finding all these ways to make that work but the majority of schools that we work with now have incorporated the cost of composting into their budget. And we find when they do that, then they tend to stick around. In the schools that we work with, for example, there's been some that have done grants, which is great. But once the grant money dries up, then they usually stop composting.
Yeah, so in Bellevue, we're redoing our strategic plan for Bellevue Public Schools, and one of the things that I wanted to do is for us to have a green initiative as part of our strategic planning because of sustainability, because this is what we're sending kids out into the world. We want them to take better care of the world, hopefully than I and my, people that before me. So I just, I am very cognizant of the difficulties that happen building to building, but also district-wide. And I guess what I hope happens is that we keep having the conversation. I know there's not a lot of us here today, but
you know, we all know 10 people or whatever, you know, and I certainly, so I would make a commitment to make sure whatever I can do as one board member for Bellevue Public Schools to make sure that this is happening and is encouraged. Because as we all know, in leadership positions, like if your leadership isn't in bought into it, it doesn't always work. So I'm just really, I thank you for what you're doing. I think it's fantastic. I, for my own, want to do it, and it's just great. So, I have a lot of questions. I don't want to make anybody feel uncomfortable or put anybody on the spot about what's happening in administration part, you know, but, we do need to get everybody on board. So
Yeah.
I'll do my part.
Yeah, I have a lot of confidence in that happening. It's just, it is, and all of us should know this, in our marketplace and everywhere around when the COVID thing hit, it kind of waylaid so many things. And then we're sitting there like, oh, now we have nothing. But there was such a momentum before then, so it's not lost. And we just need to put it all back together again. And, you know, we still have some of the original members from Bellevue West involved, and then, you know, we have a member here from the Bellevue West Sustainability, serving on our board, so it's still very present. We have grant monies, we've gotten, in fact, you know, I applied for a grant and they tripled it. Like I asked for a certain amount, and they tripled it for this program. So, you know, there's a ton of momentum around this.
Yeah, and I think we just need to incorporate it. We need to make it part of our institutional, how we just do every day. We shouldn't be
Yes.
looking, in my opinion, we shouldn't be looking at anything that's going on without an eye to sustainability.
Correct.
Because I think that's the only way to move forward. But it is sometimes a hard sell, and maybe I'm doing it wrong. I don't know.
No, it's just, you just keep trying, and the puzzle piece will fit eventually.
Yeah.
I'd like to bring in, what were the costs? I mean, what are the costs of the program?
So for us, we were able to get it to like 1,600 for the,
Semester?
yeah.
Yeah.
For the bins?
Sounds about right.
What were your costs? What were the
Oh,
items?
yeah, the bins that are gonna be unloaded by the pickup, you know, so like we're moving with them outside, because we have some ones that we have inside of our school. And then just the service itself of having the one time a week.
And then we're also gonna look into the trays, because they use styrofoam trays right now. And so, since we do have grant monies, we're gonna look into using that starting in January. There'll be these compostable trays.
Couple of things. Do you want me to cancel this live cast thing, or
I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's all good. I think it's all.
can they hear when the question?
It should be picking up on the microphone.
Oh, okay, cool. So yeah, elementary schools are more like on the 150 a month thing. High schools can be 450 to 500 a month is kind of the range.
But how much does it save a school? Like, you know, like everything, and because if we look at things like staff, we're talking about custodians having less bags to drag out, they can do, and obviously, school budget's always an issue. I mean, it's
Yeah.
always an issue.
Yeah.
So are we, if we can do a thing where we can show not only what we've saved, obviously not sending it to landfill, but actually time and manpower. That is really always really useful at a district level.
So I'm kind of like isolated from like the cost and what happens with like the landfill pickup afterwards. Or like, I don't know what a school district paying per bag. But what I do know is like Central now, for example, is probably gonna have 11,000 less trash bags per school year. So what's the cost of the bag? I'd like to know that. And then how much can that cut down from their landfill pickups?
Right.
And so OPS is hamstringed in the sense that the district level pays for the trash service for all the schools. So when we go into a school there, if they need like 1 to 3 less landfill pickups per week, they have no incentive, the principal has no incentive to order less landfill pickups. Because they don't see like oh, I have more in my budget
Oh, right.
So so they need to somehow reward them for that, because they're inclined to like, well, we'll just keep it for just in case, the football game and, we might need it or something like that, right? So there's a sort of inefficiency there, but if we could streamline that and then reward the school, like, then you can sort of like, okay, well, then let's streamline that to pay for the composting program, okay? Instead of what we did pay last year for plastic bags, and we saved, however much, let's put that towards the composting program. And so I know Gertis group, they're a sustainability consultancy group. They've worked with OPS, and what they've told me years ago is that they've seen the numbers. They said it's close to a break even.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm also involved I'm a member of the Nebraska Association for School Boards, their board, so I have colleagues in Omaha in rural districts, like all over. So I just don't know if it gets to the board level, especially in a big district like that. Like if the board doesn't know that it doesn't matter to the school because of this, that's honestly just not something that we always think about, because we are elected, but we're volunteers. We're not involved in the day-to-day running of each building.
Yeah.
But we do make these decisions and decide what, can kind of push a district or shine a light in the district where we want things to go. So it sounds like there's also a pretty big maybe disconnect between, with who's making these decisions and how it plays out in the everyday world.
Yeah.
So, and that happens everywhere, but I'm just thinking out loud a little bit.
Yeah. So like OPS has for years now been trying to make it standard practice. Every school does tray stacking, whether they're composting or not.
Okay.
And they haven't, from what I can tell, that hasn't been very successful in that. But when we do the composting program, it institutionalizes it in a way that you can't get away from. And so that's one benefit for them. And so Bellevue schools would benefit from that as well, and just in this the tray stacking.
The styrofoam trays drive.
Yeah.
They give, I see them and I go, oh, I know we could do better. Why aren't we doing better?
There's got to be residue that's going off into the food that they're eating. And
Oh,
yeah.
100%.
It's
Especially if it's hot.
It's definitely not. It's a toxic situation all around.
Oh.
But let's jump forward and say, okay, congratulations, all Bellevue schools, if they can't use reusable trays, we're now using compostable paper trays, whether they're composting or not. That's probably better for the student from a health standpoint. Like if someone would come to me today and say, hey, Brent, OPS wants the compost, but not every school is gonna have the will to do the food waste part. Like, how do we make this work? And I would say, well, 75% of what we're collecting in the compost containers at these schools is just the trays, especially high school level, because they eat more in the food. And there does exist a program where we compost at every single school in OPS, but we're just collecting the trays for the ones that don't want to take the extra step. And we're going to take 75% or more of their waste. And the only person we need to train is the custodian. To say, okay, take this stack and put it in our compost cart. And that's it. You don't have to get everybody on board and maintain the program continuously, make sure they're not, contaminating the streams. It's just the one person. And so
Did you mention that OPS uses composting trays?
Yes.
In the whole school?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, they made that change years ago, and so it's great when we get in there, because between the stacking and the composting, it's like, boom, just takes off, yeah.
You had a brief snapshot of data for Omaha Northwest. Do you keep comprehensive data like year over year, month to month, all that kind of stuff?
Nope, that's just our first week when we're physically there, and we'll take that, we'll present it to them. But it's not hard, all they need is a $30 scale and just weigh that stuff, at the end, if they wanted to optionally, yeah.
I was just thinking from like a sales standpoint of trying to get into other schools, it'd be good to have data, backing up decisions and changes and everything like that to show like month to month, year to year, what it looks like.
Yeah.
And how it changes
Yeah, so we just presented as like, this is what we did in these 5 days. And assuming that this system continues, then let's take 181 school days or whatever your school district has, times that, what does that do? And you can present those numbers there, so. Yeah,
Hoping to get it into the budget, into the school budget.
I mean, big dreaming, yeah. And I'm like. Dreaming big, yeah. But you can't get it in unless you ask, right? Like,